This year's nominees for 2023 CAOC Street Fighter of the Year are the definition of tough. They don't back down. They don't give up. From taking on a dangerous eye doctor,
somebody needed to do something about what was going on here,
to battling for a wounded warrior,
I had the privilege to represent a broken down hero,
to exposing a mortuary's devastating deceit.
This case is about a big company who was putting profits over people.
They each went above and beyond, not only for their clients, but for the good of all consumers. Jennifer Johnson took on a case others wouldn't touch. A corporate lawyer blinded in one eye during an elective surgery. The surgeon blamed an allergic reaction, but Jennifer, a former nurse, didn't buy it.
The needle that was used for the anesthesia had actually punctured my client's globe of his eye, where it was supposed to be in a space behind the eye.
The surgeon admitted he'd recently had cancer and chemotherapy, and Jennifer suspected a connection.
The treatment for this cancer actually has a side effect of peripheral neuropathy, which is actually numbness, tingling in a glove hand-like distribution in the fingertips and hands.
In a highly unusual move, Jennifer subpoenaed the doctor's medical records, 6,000 pages of shocking information.
Not only did the doctor have peripheral neuropathy dating months before he operated on my client, but I started seeing these documents that said EDD and a private disability company, and I was like, why are these records in here?
The doctor had been collecting two types of disability, meaning he was collecting disability when he performed the eye surgery. Fraud charges were added to the complaint, and the doctor settled.
The defendant offered all of the insurance money, which was on the highest end of the policies that doctors usually carry. And when the doctor offered a substantial personal contribution to settle the case, I really felt that justice had been served.
Maria Kelly went to battle for ex-Navy SEAL John Fuller after a car accident left him with a career-ending head injury. The driver who hit him claimed he'd had a medical emergency and couldn't use his legs.
I was able to get the general counsel for Toyota to authenticate that in the center console of the driver's vehicle, there was an emergency handbrake. He knew it was there. All he had to do was flick it, and he could have stopped the car.
The defense then claimed the crash didn't end John's military career because he was cleared for duty by Navy doctors.
Navy SEALs could care less what doctors think. The most important thing is when you're in the line of fire is that the man sitting next to you is performing at his best. And they saw John wasn't his best anymore. They pulled him aside about 2 months after the collision and told him, "John, your time is up, you gotta go."
John was no longer capable of being an elite warrior, and only his fellow SEALs could prove it.
I spent about a year and a half hunting down and gaining their trust, and also getting a court-ordered protective order, protecting their right to privacy to get them to testify.
Despite bullying by the defense attorney and the death of the defendant driver, Maria got the SEALs to the stand.
Their testimony was so compelling and so admirable, you could not hear a pin drop in the room. At the conclusion of each of their testimony, the court reporters and the videographers would take them aside and thank them for their service.
Ultimately, the insurance company paid the policy limit.
John Fuller received every penny that was available because of what he achieved in the war. And to me, that was invaluable, and that was my greatest sense of pride.
Robert Marcereau stepped up to fight for a grieving family after they were robbed of the chance to say their final goodbyes.
I represented the Villegas family. They had recently lost their loved one, Hector Villegas.
The family couldn't afford a casket or funeral for Hector, so they bought what's called an ID viewing.
It's only a 15-minute viewing, limited to 8 people, so it was a very small and short viewing. but it was really important to this family. It meant to the world, to this family.
But when the family showed up, they were told Hector had accidentally been cremated the day before.
About 6 hours later, somebody from the mortuary showed up with a box of ashes, and they just set it on the kitchen table. And Mary hugged the ashes close to her, wanted to hug her son, was horrified to learn the ashes were still hot.
The family suspected the ashes weren't Hector's, but couldn't be sure since ashes can't be tested for DNA.
I obtained hundreds and hundreds of pages of documents from the mortuary. Some of the documents raised serious questions about whether or not they were really telling the truth about what happened.
The defense claimed that there was only one person working at the mortuary the day Hector was cremated, yet there were 2 sets of handwriting on the cremation logs.
We were able to prove that the mortuary was lying about when Hector was cremated and when his body came out. And the inescapable conclusion of all of that is that they gave this family the wrong ashes.
Marcero got the Villegas family a far more substantial verdict than was offered. But more importantly, some justice for Hector's loved ones.
That was what was important to this family, holding this company accountable. And that was a great feeling.
The 2023 Street Fighter of the Year finalists, meeting challenges head on and fighting for what's right. 3 inspiring examples of what it means to be a consumer attorney of California.